There are symbols that transcend centuries, always surrounded by mystery and conflicting interpretations. Among them, Baphomet is undoubtedly one of the most enigmatic. Its image is often associated with occultism, alchemy, and even Satanism. But its origins are much more complex and profound. For some, Baphomet symbolizes the union of opposites, the balance between good and evil, the spiritual and the material, the masculine and the feminine. However, throughout history, it has been interpreted in various ways, reflecting the beliefs and concerns of different eras and cultures. But what does Baphomet really represent? Is it a demonic figure, as many believe, or a profound symbol of the search for wisdom and spiritual enlightenment? What does it truly reveal about humanity and the universe? The first known mention of Baphomet appears in records from the 17th century, in Latin texts dating back to the tumultuous period of the Crusades. At that time, Christian knights traveled to the Holy Land, where they came into direct contact with Islamic culture, and the Prophet Muhammad, whose name in Latin was transcribed as Mahomet. Some scholars suggest that Baphomet may be a corruption of this name, possibly used pejoratively by Europeans to refer to Islam. But is this the only explanation for the emergence of this enigmatic term? Baphomet's true prominence occurs during the trials of the Knights Templar in the 14th century. The Templar Order, one of the most powerful and influential in Christendom, had accumulated immense wealth and power over the years. This prosperity generated envy and fear among various authorities, including King Philip IV of France, who desperately sought to eliminate the order to rid himself of his growing debts. In an effort to justify its dissolution, the Templars were accused of heresy, idol worship, and pagan practices. One of the most notorious of these accusations was that they worshipped an idol called Baphomet. Under torture, several Templars confessed to worshipping this mysterious figure. However, descriptions of Baphomet were inconsistent. Some saw it as a bearded head, others as a figure with multiple faces, and there were even those who described it as a black cat. These discrepancies, along with the forced nature of the confessions, lead many historians to believe that such accusations were fabricated, serving as a pretext for the dissolution of the order and the seizure of its wealth. But to what extent do these confessions reflect the truth? The figure of Baphomet, therefore, begins its trajectory shrouded in mystery and political manipulation. The use of its name and image as a tool for accusation reveals more about the power of narratives in medieval society than about any real esoteric practice. Could the legend of Baphomet have been a convenient construct to justify unjust actions? Over time, the initial connection between Baphomet and Islam began to fade. The idol supposedly worshipped by the Templars started to be seen independently, transforming into a symbol of heresy and occultism. This transformation reflects the anxieties and fears of a changing society that often projected its own insecurities onto the unknown. The true turning point in Baphomet's history occurs in the 19th century, when European occultists rediscover and reinterpret it in light of Hermetic and alchemical traditions. But what motivated this resurgence? Why was a figure associated with the condemnation of the Templars resurrected and transformed into a central icon of modern occultism? Perhaps the answer lies in humanity's relentless search for symbols that encapsulate the duality of existence and the eternal quest for knowledge. In the 19th century, Europe experienced a resurgence of interest in occultism, partly as a response to the rationalism of the Enlightenment. It was in this context that Eliphas Lévy, a French occultist, whose real name was Alphonse Louis Constant, brought Baphomet back to the center of the esoteric stage. But what drove Lévy to take an interest in such a controversial figure? In his work, Dogma and Ritual of High Magic, Lévy presented the image of Baphomet as we know it today, an androgynous entity with a goat's head, wings, and a torch between its horns. Each element of this image is laden with deep esoteric symbolism. The goat's head, for example, often associated with wild nature and primal instincts, is balanced by the torch of enlightenment burning between the horns, representing intellect and the quest for spiritual illumination. This combination of instinct and reason reflects the intrinsic duality of the human condition. Baphomet's arms, with one pointing up and the other down, clearly allude to the Hermetic principle of as above, so below. This axiom, fundamental to Hermetic philosophy, suggests that what happens on the material plane is a reflection of what occurs on the spiritual plane, and vice versa. Thus, Baphomet symbolizes the correspondence between different levels of existence, something essential in both magic and alchemy. But could this image conceal even deeper meanings? The inscriptions on Baphomet's arms, Solve and Coagula, directly reference alchemy, the ancient practice of turning metals into gold, but which was also understood as a spiritual process of self-transformation. Solve means to dissolve, and coagula means to coagulate, referring to the alchemical processes of breaking down old forms to create new ones. In the esoteric context, these terms symbolize the destruction of obsolete structures and the creation of something new and higher. Could Baphomet be a symbolic map for internal transformation? For Levi, Baphomet was not an evil deity, but a symbol of the quest for wisdom and the integration of polarities. The androgynous figure of Baphomet, with its mixture of masculine and feminine traits, symbolized the fusion of opposites, an essential idea in both alchemy and Hermeticism. This esoteric interpretation would profoundly influence future generations of occultists, shaping how Baphomet would be perceived from then on. Levi's contribution was crucial in the resignification of Baphomet. By reinterpreting the figure within the context of Hermetic and alchemical traditions, he distanced Baphomet from negative associations and positioned it as a symbol of balance and enlightenment. Would Baphomet have achieved the same level of importance in modern occultism without Levi's intervention? Through Levi's work, Baphomet became an emblem of the union between the human and the divine, the material and the spiritual. Its symbol-rich visual representation continues to inspire and intrigue scholars and practitioners of the esoteric arts to this day. Throughout the 20th and early 21st centuries, Baphomet transcended the esoteric realm and became a central figure in popular culture, especially in cinema, music, and visual arts. But how did this transition occur? In cinema, horror films such as Rosemary's Baby, 1968, and Hereditary, 2018, incorporated the image of Baphomet to explore themes of mystery, occultism, and fear of the unknown. The figure is often portrayed as a threatening presence, a symbol of latent evil lurking in the shadows of society. This representation reinforces stereotypes and fuels the public's fascination with the occult. But does this vision do justice to the symbolic complexity of Baphomet? The music culture also embraced the figure of Baphomet, especially in the heavy metal and rock genres. Bands like Black Sabbath, Slayer, and Ghost have used Baphomet symbols in their album covers and live performances, representing rebellion against established norms and a quest for freedom of thought. For many artists, Baphomet has become a counterculture icon, symbolizing the rejection of social conventions and the celebration of individuality. In contemporary visual arts, Baphomet emerges as a symbol of duality and introspection. Artists like Mark Ryden explore the complexity of this icon, using its disturbing aesthetic and rich symbolism to provoke reflections on human nature and inner conflicts. Baphomet's figure challenges the viewer to confront their own fears and prejudices. Could art be reclaiming the true meaning of Baphomet beyond the negative associations? The use of Baphomet in fashion, through brands inspired by occultism, also demonstrates how the figure has been incorporated into alternative lifestyles. Clothes and accessories featuring its image are worn as expressions of identity and personal assertion. Does this popularization contribute to demystifying the symbol, or does it simply reinforce stereotypes? Baphomet's presence in pop culture reflects a continuous resignification of its meaning. Although often disconnected from its esoteric roots, its image still carries deep symbolic power, tapping into the collective psyche and society's deepest fears and aspirations. In a world in constant transformation, Baphomet remains a mirror of the dualities that shape the human experience. Aleister Crowley, one of the most influential and controversial occultists of the 20th century, adopted Baphomet as a central figure in his philosophical and esoteric system known as Thelema. But what led Crowley to identify so deeply with Baphomet? For Crowley, Baphomet represented the union of opposites, both in the literal and metaphorical sense. The fusion of masculine and feminine, light and darkness, matter and spirit. All these contrasts came together in the figure of Baphomet as the embodiment of perfect balance. Crowley saw in this union the key to spiritual emancipation, believing that the integration of these opposing forces was essential for the realization of the true self. He also referred to himself as Baphomet within the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, reflecting his personal identification with the symbol sexual magic. A central practice in Crowley's system was based on the idea that sexual energy could be channeled to achieve spiritual enlightenment. In this context, Baphomet represented not only the physical act of sexual union, but also the alchemical fusion of opposites within the individual. Could this practice be seen as a form of internal alchemy? For Crowley, Baphomet did not symbolize evil, but rather the liberation from the restrictions imposed by traditional morality and dogmatic religions. He saw in Baphomet an icon of personal power, wisdom, and transformation. Through his writings and teachings, Crowley profoundly influenced modern perceptions of Baphomet, emphasizing its connection to the pursuit of enlightenment and the integration of the self. Crowley's association of Baphomet with his practices also contributed to misunderstandings and controversies surrounding the figure. Many began to associate Baphomet exclusively with radical occultism and practices considered taboo by society. But does this view do justice to the symbolic depth of Baphomet? Through Crowley's work, Baphomet came to be seen as a symbol of spiritual and social emancipation, representing a new era of individual freedom and self-discovery. His influence continues to be felt in esoteric practices and spiritual movements that value the integration of opposites and the quest for inner truth. While Baphomet is often associated with Western occultism, there are intriguing connections between its symbolism and Kabbalah, the mystical system of Judaism. But how do these traditions intertwine? Kabbalah explores the spheres of creation, known as the Sephirot, which represent divine aspects, and their emanation into the material world. Some esoteric scholars see Baphomet as a representation of the hidden forces that govern the balance between these spheres, particularly the union of opposing forces like Chesed, mercy, and Geburah, severity. Could Baphomet symbolize the harmonization of these contrasting energies? Baphomet can be viewed as a personification of the Sephira Da'at, the hidden knowledge that connects the upper and lower spheres of creation. In Kabbalah, Da'at is considered an integrative sphere that unites divine wisdom with material manifestation. This idea resonates deeply with Baphomet's symbolism as a mediator between heaven and earth, spirit and matter. Is it possible that Baphomet represents the hidden knowledge that enables this connection? Moreover, the use of geometric symbols in Kabbalah, such as the hexagram, to represent the union of opposing forces, finds a parallel in Baphomet's symbolism. In Jewish mysticism, the hexagram symbolizes the balance between the elements of fire and water, the upper and the lower, concepts that align with the Hermetic principle of as above, so below. This correspondence suggests a profound connection between Jewish esoteric traditions and Baphomet's representation. The presence of Kabbalistic elements in the study of Baphomet reflects the rich interconnection between various mystical traditions. Though not always explored on the surface, these connections reveal that the archetype of Baphomet carries echoes of ancient traditions intertwined with modern occult knowledge. Could this understanding broaden our perception of Baphomet beyond conventional associations? Exploring these connections allows for a deeper appreciation of Baphomet, highlighting its relevance not only in Western occultism, but also in broader mystical contexts. This reinforces the idea that Baphomet is a multifaceted symbol, representing the universal quest for balance and wisdom. The founding of the Church of Satan by Anton LaVey in 1966 marked a new era in the interpretation of Baphomet. LaVey adopted the figure as a central symbol of his church, using the icon of the goat's head within an inverted pentagram. But what did this new representation signify? For LaVey, Satanism was not about the literal worship of Satan, but rather a philosophical movement that promoted indulgence in desires and the rejection of restrictions imposed by monotheistic religions. In this context, Baphomet became an emblem of freedom of thought and expression, representing individual autonomy over collective dogmas. The choice of the inverted pentagram with the goat's head reinforced the idea of subverting established norms. Could this appropriation be seen as a form of cultural provocation? However, this new representation of Baphomet sparked controversies and misunderstandings. For many, especially within conservative religious groups, Baphomet came to be viewed as a symbol of absolute evil, an icon of satanic worship that personified moral corruption. The media amplified this perception, associating the image of Baphomet with satanic rituals and conspiracy theories about secret cults. But to what extent do these associations reflect reality? One of the most persistent theories suggests that Baphomet is secretly venerated by powerful elites and occult societies, who supposedly use its symbolism to manipulate the masses and promote dark agendas. These theories have been fueled by the use of esoteric symbols in cultural events and the media, leading many to believe in a conspiracy to promote the worship of Baphomet and subvert traditional values. But do these claims have any basis? While these theories lack concrete evidence, They have had a profound impact on the public perception of Baphomet, distorting its original esoteric meaning. The figure has become a focal point in debates about morality, religious freedom, and cultural influence. Understanding this modern appropriation is essential for separating myth from reality and appreciating the symbolic complexity of Baphomet. One of the biggest misconceptions surrounding Baphomet is its direct association with Satan. Although many confuse the two figures, they have distinct origins, meanings, and purposes. But why is this confusion so common? Satan, in the Christian context, is the adversary, the archenemy of God, and the symbol of absolute evil. He represents temptation, the fall, and destruction. Baphomet, in its original representations, is a figure of duality and balance, embodying both good and evil, light and darkness. While Satan is seen as a destructive force, Baphomet is associated with alchemical transmutation and the pursuit of hidden wisdom. Could this distinction change how we perceive these figures? The modern association between Baphomet and Satan was solidified mainly with the founding of the Church of Satan and the use of the image by groups promoting rebellion against religious traditions. However, this connection is a modern creation, with no roots in the original esoteric traditions that shaped Baphomet's symbolism. Understanding this difference is essential for dispelling myths and misinformation. Another key point of divergence is Baphomet's role in alchemy and Hermeticism. Unlike Satan, who symbolizes chaos and separation, Baphomet represents unity of being and the reconciliation of opposites. Baphomet points to integration and balance, while Satan is often associated with discord and conflict. Does confusing these two figures prevent us from fully appreciating Baphomet's rich symbolism? By separating these concepts, we can gain a more accurate and enriched view of Baphomet in its entirety. Recognizing its original origins and meanings allows us to explore its role as a symbol of transformation, wisdom, and balance, without the distortions caused by modern misconceptions. Baphomet is a figure that transcends simple definitions, serving as a powerful and multifaceted representation of humanity's deepest quests. From its origins as a medieval idol to its resignification in modern occultism and Satanism, Baphomet symbolizes the union of opposites and the ceaseless search for hidden knowledge. Rather than being a static figure, it has evolved over centuries, adapting to the spiritual and philosophical needs of each era. If you're interested in exploring more about spirituality, I've specially selected some videos filled with profound knowledge and fascinating discoveries that you're going to love. Just click on one of them. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of self-discovery and spiritual learning. Your commitment to knowledge is the first step toward transforming your reality.